The moment the string lights flickered to life above the rooftop patio, I knew I'd made a mistake bringing her. Not because she looked out of place, quite the opposite. She blended in too well. Like she'd rehearsed for this. Like the celebration wasn't for me, but a stage she'd been waiting to step onto. 33 pairs of shoes crossed that rooftop tonight. I counted them. Anything to avoid counting how many times she glanced in my direction. Spoiler: 0. The playlist was mine. The drinks were my favorites. The banner even said, "Cheers to you, King." A joke from my team after I landed the McCleary contract. Everyone laughed when they saw it. Everyone except her. She just sipped her drink and immediately started flirting with someone from logistics, some guy in a navy blazer who called her ma'am, like he wasn't already scanning her neckline with his eyes. I kept adjusting my name tag. I don't even know why. Maybe I thought if I straightened it, someone might actually look at it. Look at me. At one point, I stood by the dessert table for 10 whole minutes pretending to choose between 2 identical brownies just to avoid walking past her again while she twirled her hair at navy blazer. My name was printed in gold foil on the cake. Her lipstick was on someone else's glass. But what gutted me, truly gutted, wasn't the neglect. It was the timing. You see, this wasn't just a party. It was the first time in 7 years I had anything even close to a win. A promotion, sure, but more than that, recognition. And I wanted her to see it. To see me. Instead, I watched my moment get swallowed whole by the way her laugh carried across the rooftop. They handed me a mic for a toast. My hands were shaking. Not from nerves, from anger I couldn't place. She was still talking to him, her back turned. I raised my glass anyway and said something bland. Something safe. Something no one would remember. No one except me. Later, I found myself on the far side of the rooftop, where the speakers crackled and no one lingered. I stared down at the sidewalk, for floors below, watching people pass by without knowing I existed. That's when I got an idea. No scene. No words. Just silence. I slipped out the service stairs and vanished into the night. And wouldn't you know it? Exactly 9 minutes later, my phone lit up with her name. That was the first time she noticed I was gone. And what she assumed had happened, and what she did next, is what turned this night from humiliating to unforgettable. Her name lit up on my screen just as I crossed the street and ducked into the alley behind the building. I didn't answer. I watched the phone vibrate against my palm like it was mocking me, like it had waited for this moment just as long as I had. The moment she would realize I wasn't orbiting her anymore. That I wasn't standing in her shadow, smiling like a fool while she paraded around the rooftop like she was the main attraction at an event with my name on the banner. She called again. This time, I answered. I didn't say anything at first. Just held the phone to my ear and listened to the faint noise of music and clinking glasses behind her voice. "Where the hell are you?" she snapped. Not concerned. Not curious. Just irritated, like I had inconvenienced her by disappearing from my own celebration. I stayed quiet. "You left without saying a word?" she added, voice rising. "Are you seriously that dramatic?" It stung. The way she said it. Like I was the child. Like I had stormed off during a board game and flipped the table. As if I hadn't spent the last 2 hours watching her play pretend with a guy who called her babe under his breath when he thought no one was listening. "I just needed air," I muttered, finally. She scoffed. "No, you needed attention." And right there, in that filthy alley with the trash bins and the sour stench of something old and wet, I realized she wasn't trying to find me out of worry. She was trying to find me to manage me. Like she was putting out a small fire before it got noticed. "I saw you with him," I said, flat. Cold. Not even angry anymore, just hollow. There was a pause. Just a second too long. Then she laughed. It wasn't even defensive, just lazy. "Are you serious right now?" she said, dragging the words out like I was the world's dumbest man. "I was talking to someone. God forbid I socialize." "You were touching his arm." Whispering. "Laughing like you were already planning your exit together," I replied. My voice was shaking now. Not out of rage, it was something uglier. That feeling when you're begging someone to just stop lying, even when you know they won't. She didn't deny it. That was the part that burned. "You really think I'd cheat on you in the middle of your party?" she finally said, tone icy. "You're paranoid. No wonder no one wanted to toast you." That line broke something in me. Because I remembered how awkward that toast had been. How forced. The way people clapped because they were supposed to, not because they were happy. I remembered thinking it was all in my head. That maybe I just wasn't used to the spotlight. But she confirmed it. Right there. She saw it too. She just never said anything. Never supported me. because she was too busy making sure she was the most interesting person in the room. I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't give her the last word. Instead, I sat on the curb, staring at the shadows cast by streetlights, and tried to remember the last time she looked at me like I was enough. Like I was anything at all. 5 minutes passed, then 10, and then a message. Not from her. From someone else. A photo. Blurry. Taken in low light. Her. And navy blazer. Not whispering this time. Not touching his arm. Kissing. Right there, behind one of the support beams on the rooftop. It wasn't me who took the photo, but it was someone I knew. Someone who saw what I didn't. Or maybe, someone who dared to look. And with that single image, the narrative shattered. Her defense fell apart. She thought I had left. That I wouldn't see. That she could erase her tracks before I found them. She was wrong. And that's when I made the decision to turn this night, my night, into something no one would forget. I didn't move for a long time. I sat on that curb like someone had tied me to the ground. Mind spinning, heart completely numb. The photo was still glowing on my screen. A crooked snapshot of everything I had refused to see for years. Her hands cupped around his jaw. His fingers slipping down her back like they belonged there. Her eyes closed. Lips curled into a half-smile. I stared at it for maybe 15 minutes, maybe an hour. I didn't even feel time anymore. Just a sickening weight pressing down on my lungs every time I remembered her laughing when I called her out. That little, "you're paranoid," laugh, like I was pathetic for even suspecting. I wanted to go home, lock the door, fall into the quiet, and stay there. But something in me shifted. Not revenge. I'm not built for that. I'm not the guy who flips tables or smashes phones or screams on sidewalks. No, but I was tired of being rewritten in her version of the story. Tired of being the harmless, boring husband she could treat like wallpaper while she turned every event into her own runway. I wasn't going to destroy her. I was going to expose her with precision. Quiet. Measured. The way she'd never expect. I started with the photo. I didn't post it anywhere. I sent it to myself. Saved it in 2 separate drives. I wasn't going to confront her with it until the timing was perfect. But I needed proof. And now I had it. Not just gossip. Not just gut instinct. Evidence. Then I texted Owen. Owen was the guy who took the picture. He wasn't a close friend. Just someone who had worked with me on the Cincinnati pitch a year ago. Decent guy. He knew something wasn't right when he saw her with navy blazer. Whose name, by the way, I found out was Travis. Because of course it was. Owen texted back almost instantly. Owen, man, I didn't want to get involved. But I couldn't believe what I saw. She's been around him all night. Me? Did they leave together? Owen, no. She went back inside after. Like nothing happened. Of course she did. I stood up, brushed off my pants, and walked down the block until I reached the far end of the building. The rooftop party was still glowing above. From the street, it looked beautiful. Music and laughter, sparkling lights, silhouettes moving through joy. No one up there knew what had just happened. And that's when I noticed her standing near the ledge. Not alone. Travis was back, standing way too close. I took out my phone and started recording. Not the kiss. That already happened. I wasn't trying to catch more evidence. I was recording her. The way she twirled her hair. The way she laughed with her whole body tilted forward. The same way she used to with me, back when we were still new and I was still someone she saw, not just someone she lived next to. They didn't kiss again, but it didn't matter. What I was capturing was who she really was when she thought I wasn't watching. I stopped the video after 30 seconds. And then I went back upstairs. She didn't see me at first. I stepped around the side, near the elevator entrance, and waited. I didn't go in swinging. Didn't call her name. Just waited. She turned. Her eyes landed on me. And that was the moment. Her face, the split-second panic before she plastered on the fake smile, told me everything. "Oh, you're back," she said, walking toward me. "I was just about to call again." "Sure you were." I smiled. Not because I felt like smiling, but because I needed her to think I was calm. That I was still the same harmless Bradley she always dismissed. "I just wanted to thank everyone before I go," I said, loud enough for a few heads nearby to turn. She blinked. "Wait, what?" I looked around, made brief eye contact with Darren, my boss, a few of the marketing guys. "Thank you for coming out tonight," I said. It really meant a lot to see who actually supports me. Some clapped. Others looked confused. But Lacey? She was frozen. I leaned closer to her and said quietly, "Don't follow me home tonight. We're going to do this a little differently." She opened her mouth to say something, but I was already walking away. This wasn't over. I didn't know yet what the end of this story would be, but for the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting. I was deciding. And what I decided next would change everything she thought she knew about me. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I didn't toss or turn either. I just lay on the couch, arms crossed over my chest like I was bracing for impact, staring at the ceiling and listening to every tick of the hallway clock. She didn't come home. I wasn't surprised. She texted at 12:48 a.m., staying at Jenna's tonight. Thought you needed space. I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to punish her. I just couldn't stomach another lie wrapped in faux concern. Jenna lived 2 towns over, was 7 months pregnant, and asleep by 9 p.m. every night. Lacey knew that I knew. She was daring me to call her bluff. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed her to feel safe, unchallenged, so she'd keep lying freely, carelessly. Every word she gave me now was a thread unraveling her story. By morning, I had already changed every password in the house. Bank logins, utilities, subscriptions, even the damn grocery app. I transferred what was legally mine into an account she didn't know about. I wasn't cleaning her out. I was protecting myself from being financially sucker-punched when this exploded, which it would. Soon. Around 9:15 a.m., the garage door whined open. I stayed on the couch, phone in hand, and waited. Her footsteps came in light. Too light, like she was trying to sound innocent. When she turned the corner and saw me sitting upright, fully dressed, hair combed, laptop open on the coffee table, she flinched. It was subtle, but I saw it. "Oh, you're up early," she said, adjusting her coat like it mattered. "I was never asleep," I replied. She hesitated, smiled that weak, slow smile that used to disarm me. "I didn't want to fight. That's why I gave you space." "You didn't stay at Jenna's," I said flatly. Her face stiffened. "Excuse me." I opened my laptop, turned the screen toward her, played the 30-second rooftop video on mute. No kiss, just her body language, her posture, her hand brushing his chest like it was second nature. She stared at it, blinked twice. "Someone sent it to me," I added, along with the photo from earlier. She didn't speak. I could tell she was scrolling through possible responses in her head, trying to calculate which version of the truth would hurt her the least. But she underestimated something. I wasn't playing defense anymore. "You don't get to explain this away," I said. "You don't get to paint me as jealous or paranoid. Not this time." She stepped back, exhaled sharply, and said, "You're blowing this way out of proportion. Nothing happened. We were just talking." "I didn't ask what happened," I replied. "I'm telling you what comes next." That's when she laughed. Out loud. A bitter, guttural sound. "Oh, come on, Bradley. What are you gonna do? Leave me? You'd fall apart in 2 weeks. You need me." It wasn't even the words that gutted me. It was the ease. The way she meant it. Like she'd already played out a dozen versions of this confrontation in her head and dismissed all of them as irrelevant. She thought I would collapse like I always had. Grovel. Apologize for misinterpreting. Beg for closeness. She didn't realize something irreversible had cracked inside me. "I already moved half the money into a separate account," I said, eyes locked on hers. "I've made an appointment with a lawyer. And your name's off the insurance by next week." Her smirk faltered. "You're lying," she said. I stood and walked past her, grabbing the envelope I'd printed last night. Inside, screenshots, statements, timelines. A short note at the bottom. "We both know this wasn't sudden." I dropped it on the kitchen counter like a feather. Not a threat, just a document. She picked it up, hands trembling. "This is insane," she whispered. "You're throwing everything away over some misunderstanding." "No," I said. "You threw it away the moment you decided your ego mattered more than my dignity. You just thought I wouldn't notice. Or worse, that I'd notice and still stay." Silence. And then, tears. Maybe real, maybe not. I couldn't tell anymore. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, voice cracking. "I know," I replied. "That's what makes it worse. You hurt me without even flinching." She stood there, in the house we built together, suddenly small. Like a stranger waiting for instructions. But I had none. "I need you to leave," I said. "Not forever. Not yet. Just for now." And to my surprise, she did. No screaming. No threats. Just silence. But I knew better. The storm was coming. The one where she'd try to twist the story, reclaim control, turn my pain into drama and her betrayal into a misstep. But I was ready. Because this time, I wasn't going to let her narrate my downfall. I was going to write the ending myself. She was gone by midday. She didn't take much, just her phone, her keys, and the overnight bag I suspected she had already packed the night before the party. I watched her drive away from the upstairs window without moving, without blinking. For a moment, I almost felt nothing. And then, once the tail lights disappeared around the corner, it hit me, not grief, not heartbreak, but a silence so thick it rattled the walls. A silence I had never heard in this house before. Not even when she used to give me the cold shoulder after fights. That silence had always been sharp, angry. But this was different. This was empty. By the next morning, the calls began. Not from her, not yet. From people I hadn't spoken to in months. Her friends. Our friends. Even my own sister, who I'd always suspected liked Lacey more than she liked me. The first voicemail was from Rebecca, Lacey's coworker. Hey, just reaching out. I don't know exactly what's going on, but Lacey told me you overreacted to something and kicked her out? I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. Call me if you want to talk. A misunderstanding. Of course. That was the beginning of her apology tour. Not to me, but to everyone else. One by one, she spun her web, careful not to call me outright toxic or unstable, just confused. Overwhelmed. She painted me as a good man having a bit of a breakdown under pressure. And the worst part? People bought it. Even my sister, Charlotte. She's scared, Brad, Charlotte said during her call that night. She said you're shutting her out and not letting her explain. Maybe just hear her out. I didn't get angry. Not even frustrated. I just asked one question. Did she tell you about the kiss? There was a pause. A long one. No, Charlotte said slowly. She just said there was a conversation you misread. I have a photo, I said, taken by someone who was there. Not blurry. Not vague. A photo that shows her with another man while I was giving a speech to a room full of people clapping for me. More silence. I'm sending it to you now, I added. And I did. Not out of spite. Not a shock. But because I was tired of being the only one who saw it. If Lacey was going to wage a charm offensive, I needed at least one person in my corner who knew the truth. Charlotte called back 5 minutes later. Her voice shook this time. Brad. I didn't know. I didn't think she would. She stopped herself. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. That was the moment she shifted. The moment I wasn't alone anymore. Later that week, Lacey finally reached out directly. She didn't call. She sent a video. That alone told me everything. She wanted to control the pacing, the tone, the delivery. It was carefully staged. She sat by the window, the light hitting her face just right, makeup subtle but flawless. Her voice was low, gentle, with just enough tremble to make her look vulnerable. I know I hurt you, she began. And if I could go back to that night, I would do it differently. I didn't mean for it to become what it did. I made a mistake, but I never stopped loving you. You're my husband, and I never thought I'd see the day where you wouldn't even look at me. She continued for 6 minutes. She never said Travis's name. Never once admitted what had actually happened. She kept using terms like bad choice, slip, and lost in the moment. It was a confession without substance, regret without responsibility. But then came the real reason for the video. I know you're angry, and I know you're shutting people out, but please, Brad, don't destroy everything over one moment. I'm willing to go to counseling. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Just don't make this permanent. It was polished, manipulative, almost convincing. And then, 20 minutes later, another text came in. This one wasn't from her. It was from Travis. I didn't even know he had my number. Hey, just wanted to say I didn't know she was married when we talked that night. I had no idea it was your event, man. If I had, I never would have crossed that line. My bad. Really? I stared at the message like it was a grenade. He didn't know? I opened his Instagram. Public profile. Full name. Tagged in our event post. My name was in the caption, for God's sake. He absolutely knew. And the fact that he thought a vague apology would smooth this over told me exactly what kind of man he was. But now I had something new. Not just evidence of betrayal, but proof that she had lied again, even after being caught. I didn't respond to either of them. Not yet. Because I had a plan. I was going to take back my story. Not with revenge. Not with destruction. But with the one thing neither of them saw coming. Control. The hardest part of all of it wasn't the betrayal or even the humiliation. It was the slow, disorienting realization that the people I trusted, my wife, my sister, Even coworkers I used to consider friends could hear two wildly different stories and still sit in the middle, paralyzed by their need to stay neutral. Neutrality in betrayal, I've learned, is just quiet complicity. They knew the truth now. They'd seen the photo. Some had watched the video. But still, no one said her name out loud. No one called her a cheater. No one confronted her directly. They just shifted in their chairs, changed the subject, or lowered their voices when I entered the room. That's why I stopped talking. I didn't rant. I didn't post anything public. I didn't even tell people my side. Because I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want gossip. I wanted something cleaner. Something that couldn't be twisted or drowned in context. So, I made a decision. That Friday, exactly 1 week after the rooftop party, I sent out a simple group message to 37 people, friends, coworkers, and yes, even family, titled, "For Clarity." No drama. No sob story. Just a Google Drive folder with the following. A copy of my thank you speech from the party, timestamped. A video of the crowd clapping during the speech. The image of Lacey kissing Travis behind the pillar while I stood at the mic. A second image, taken just after, showing her walking past me without a glance. A transcript of her apology video. A screenshot of Travis's message to me. A short note that read, "I never wanted to share this, but since multiple versions of the story are being told, I thought you deserved to see what really happened. I'm not asking for sides. I'm asking for awareness. Bradley." That was it. No anger. No insults. No blame. And yet, within an hour, everything detonated. People who hadn't spoken to me in months suddenly reached out, not to offer pity, but to apologize. Apologize for doubting, for listening to half-truths, for assuming I was overreacting. One message in particular stood out. It was from Lauren, a former coworker who had always admired Lacey and once told me I was lucky to have a woman so confident. Her message read, "I honestly had no idea. I've been defending her all week. I feel sick. You didn't deserve that, Brad. No one does." And just like that, the tone shifted. The social pressure she was using to paint me as unstable began to turn inward. People began distancing themselves from her. She wasn't the mysterious, wronged wife anymore. She was the woman who made a fool of her husband on his night, then tried to erase it behind soft-spoken videos and vague apologies. But it wasn't just strangers that saw her clearly now. It was her own sister, Megan. I hadn't spoken to Megan much in years. She was blunt, allergic to drama, and never had a filter. But she messaged me that Saturday afternoon with 2 sentences that made me sit down. "She's done this before. You're just the first one who didn't cover for her." That was the crack in the foundation I never expected. I called Megan. She answered immediately, almost like she'd been waiting. She told me stories, half whispers at first, then clearer. Things she'd seen. Lies Lacey had told. An old roommate she had cheated on her college boyfriend with. The manager she got a little too close to during her first year at the firm. All of it swept under rugs because she had a gift, that smile, that voice, that perfect mix of vulnerability and confidence that made people question themselves before questioning her. I was one of them, but not anymore. I asked Megan why she was telling me this now. "Why not earlier?" "I thought you knew," she said. "I thought you saw it. Or maybe you did, and you just loved her anyway." She was right. And now, I didn't love her anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was exhausted. Hollow. Ready to reclaim whatever pieces of myself were still mine. That night, Lacey called. Not a text. A real call. I answered. Her voice was fragile, almost trembling. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Why would you share that with everyone?" "Because you already did," I said. "You just did it behind my back, with lies. I simply replaced your version with the truth. You ruined my reputation." "No," I said, calmly. "You did that. I just stopped covering for you." She went quiet. Then she asked, "So what now? Is this it? Is this how we end?" "I don't know," I told her honestly. "But for the first time, it's not your call." And I hung up. That night, I slept like a man who finally found the off switch on a screaming alarm that had been ringing in his head for years. The week after I sent the drive folder was quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful, it felt loaded. The kind of silence you hear right before something breaks. I kept expecting another message from Lacey. Another voicemail. Another perfectly curated apology. But the line stayed cold. Nothing. She didn't call, she didn't text, she didn't even show up at the house. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't vibrating with the echo of her presence, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel strange. I thought maybe she had finally accepted it. That the mask had slipped, and she had nothing left to spin. That she was going to disappear quietly into whatever version of her life didn't include me. But then came Sunday morning. It started with a knock. I was halfway through my coffee when I heard it. Not the doorbell, a knock. Slow. Purposeful. I opened the door, already knowing it was her. She was standing there, coat tied around her, hair tied back, no makeup, the same version of her she used to be when we first moved in together, before all the filters and presentation. She was holding a box. A literal cardboard box, taped closed. On the top, she'd written my name. I didn't say anything. I stepped aside, letting her in not because I wanted her inside, but because I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of begging on the front porch for an audience. She placed the box on the coffee table, took off her coat like she still lived here, and sat down on the farthest cushion. "It's not what you think," she said, already defending something I hadn't accused. "I haven't said a word," I replied. She nodded, swallowed, and started talking anyway. About how things had gotten complicated, how she had felt invisible, how that night was never about hurting me, just about feeling seen, in a moment where I had, in her words, become bigger than the room. That's how she framed it. That my success, my moment, made her feel small. "I didn't mean to fall into something with Travis," she added, eyes flicking toward the window. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." "You kissed him," I said, while I was giving a speech to a room full of people clapping for me. "I know. While I was thanking you, by name." She looked down at her hands. I panicked. "I didn't expect you to find out." And there it was, the sentence that summed up everything. She wasn't sorry it happened. She was sorry she got caught. "You used to say I was your best friend," I told her, more to myself than to her. "How do you betray your best friend like that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pushed the box toward me. "I packed what I thought you'd want back. Letters. Photos. That ugly mug you kept on your nightstand. You can throw it away if you want." I didn't touch it. She stood up, smoothed her coat, and added one more thing before heading to the door. "I'm pregnant." It landed in the air like a fire alarm. My chest locked. My breath caught. Everything around me blurred. "You're what?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't flinch. 2 months. I found out last week." Silence stretched between us, long and cruel. I did the math in my head. It could be mine, but it could just as easily be his. And the fact that she waited this long to tell me, waited until after the truth came out, until after her story collapsed, told me everything. "You want me to believe this is mine?" I asked slowly. "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just thought you deserved to know." That was a lie. She was asking for everything: forgiveness, sympathy, a new narrative. She wanted to change the tone, to rewrite the story from villain to victim to expectant mother trying to do the right thing. "I'll take a test," she offered. "We can do the math together." I'm not trying to trap you, Bradley. But she was. Or at least, she was hoping that even the possibility of fatherhood would be enough to pull me back into her orbit. That it would make me question everything I'd already accepted. And for a second, just a second, I almost did. I imagined the future. A child. Sleepless nights. First words. A life split between visits and custody agreements. And in every version of that future, I was always the one carrying the guilt, bending to keep the peace, doing what was right, while she rewrote the script. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "When you're ready to prove it, let me know. Until then, don't come back here again." She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just left. And when the door closed, the silence that followed felt different than before. Not hollow, not loaded, but final. And yet, deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because people like Lacey never end things. They loop. They circle back. They find cracks in the foundation and slip through them when you're not looking. After she left that morning, after the bombshell, after the quiet, I sat there for hours without touching the box she left. I just stared at it like it might move or whisper or unravel some secret that would make all of this make sense. But there was nothing inside it that could undo the damage. A box of our history, that's all it was. A box of things that once meant something, now reduced to props in a story I didn't believe in anymore. Over the next few days, Lacey kept her distance. She didn't follow up about the pregnancy. She didn't beg to come back. And part of me started to wonder if maybe, this would be the one time she actually let go. But then came the email. Not dramatic, not emotional. Just a request, a formal paternity test. She offered it. She set it up. Paid for it. No conditions, no tears. Just facts. And that's when the shift truly happened inside me. Because for once, she wasn't trying to manipulate the narrative, she was surrendering control of it. We did the test. It took a week. I didn't tell anyone. Not my sister, not my friends, not even Megan. I needed space to prepare for either outcome, to be a father, or to finally walk away with nothing left tethering me to her world. The result came on a Wednesday morning, in an email so ordinary I nearly missed it. Negative. The child wasn't mine. I read that line 5 times. Let it sink in like sunlight into cold skin. I didn't feel angry. I didn't cry. I just exhaled, a long, quiet breath that had been sitting in my lungs since the rooftop party. I was free. Really, actually free. There would be no shared custody. No court visits. No long, painful compromise dressed up as doing the right thing. There would be no more loop. No more rewriting the same chapter. Lacey and I weren't tangled in a tragedy anymore. We were just over. I sent her one final message. I wish you peace. I won't speak about you again, and I won't respond after this. Whatever you decide to do next, I hope it's honest. Take care. She never replied. A month later, I moved out of the house. Not because I had to, it was legally mine, but because I didn't want to live in a museum of old decisions. I found a small place on the edge of town. Quiet, bright, nothing fancy. I got a dog. Started biking on the weekends. I even signed up for a photography class, something I'd shelved for years because, as she once put it, it's not worth the time. The people who mattered came back into my life. Charlotte apologized again. Megan and I grabbed lunch and laughed for the first time in forever. My coworkers, the ones who stayed quiet before, started treating me with something different now. Respect, maybe. Or just recognition. But the biggest change wasn't around me. It was inside. I stopped doubting my gut. I stopped shrinking myself to fit someone else's spotlight. I stopped accepting half-truths dressed as love. I know stories like this don't always get a happy ending. But this one? It did. Because peace is a happy ending. And I finally have mine. And if you're reading this, if you're in the middle of your own unraveling, just know, you don't have to explode to escape. You don't have to become the villain to save yourself. Sometimes the quietest choices are the ones that change everything. I didn't win anything flashy. I didn't get revenge. I didn't need to. I got out. And that was enough.